Phil, they got a lot of people coming back on defense. What do you see there? A lot of experience. I know they forced some turnovers.
Well, they have 10 guys that have started on defense back, and they've been playing in the same system for the last 2, 3, 4 years, depending on what year the players are. And so there's a lot of continuity defensively, and there's also a lot of confidence. I think, you know, Cliff is a friend of mine. I've followed his team for years. We opened with Texas Tech in 2015, and I know that improving on the defensive side of the football has been a major issue there, and they've gotten systematically better over the years. And I think this is what it seems to me is the first year they're coming back into a season with some really high confidence on the defensive side of the football, because it's probably their most talented group of defensive players that they've had since Cliff has been there, and it's also maybe the most veteran-laden team that they've had on defense. And so those two things right now I think are huge for them, and they have a lot of confidence on that side of the football.
Coach, I know you and Kingsbury are friends. When was the last time you talked to him, particularly with you guys opening the season against each other this year? And how much back and forth do y'all do in terms of sharing knowledge?
Truthfully, I think Cliff is one of the best game-playing guys on offense that I know. That I think he's one of the best in the college game. And so I make it a point to see him every year if I can. Of course, we didn't get together this year. Talked to him last week via text. We're going to talk on the phone tonight, but he does a great job of game planning explosive plays and game planning touchdowns. And you know, he's not going to spend time to put in a sprint out package to throw a 5-yard hitch. He's gonna put time and energy into investing into plays that are explosive and create touchdowns. And that initially was my interest in some of the things that he does. And you know, I don't think that's going to change this year. I think he's been game planning Ole Miss for quite some time now.
Hey, Phil, don't I remember that there were some Texas Tech Mike Leach influences on you in this offense, right? Could you give us a kind of a Cliff Notes version of that, how you came to, I guess, devise your offense?
Well, I met Mike Leach in 96, 97 in Kentucky when he was with Hal Mumme at Kentucky in the SEC. And right around that time is when I adopted the air raid philosophy with regards to the passing game. And that's been what I've done ever since. It's what we're doing here in the passing game. People look at us and say, well, that's not air raid. And you know, from an X's and O's and a formation standpoint, that's not what you expect to see. We're not doing what Washington State does. We're not doing what they initially did at Texas Tech. But philosophically, chasing space and creating separation versus man coverage and doing all those things in terms of attacking space, both in the run game and in the pass game, that hasn't changed since I met him. I believe in that philosophy. That's what we do here. I think our guys are good at it. And but there's always going to be a physical downhill run element in the offense, and that might be, I think, maybe the biggest difference. And I met Cliff in the early 90s when he was, in the early 2000s when he was playing quarterback for Mike, and I'd say over the past 5 or 6 years I've got to know him, really well.
Coach, looks like their base defense is a 3-down lineman, which we see a lot in the SEC. Doesn't change anything with what you're going to be game planning for your offense, does it?
You know, it does, and I always say this: it's more about what we're doing. There's only so many things you can do on defense, just like there's only so many things you can do on offense. I mean, you're going to be in a 3-down, you're going to be in a 5-0-5, you're going to be in a 4-down. I mean, there are little nuances that are different from, you know, an LSU to a Texas Tech to an Arkansas. But there's subtle differences, you know, in terms of whether they're going to move those people or not. This game plan and the things that we're doing right now are more about, you know, what we want. We want to dictate on offense, and we don't want to be reactive. And so, obviously, we're going to cater to plays that we think are going to be more successful each Saturday. But This is more about us just being good at what we do than it is trying to design an entirely new game plan for just one opponent.
What has Elijah Moore done to earn a spot in the two deep here?
Well, I mean, Elijah's young, but he's been here in the summertime and worked hard and gotten to know our players. And you know, he's really, really athletic. He's a great player out in space. You know, we're constantly trying to promote space for all of our guys, both in the run game and in the pass game. And he does a tremendous job of taking advantage of open grass. And so, I think at some point you're going to see some of his open field talents this season. Whether or not that's Saturday, I don't know yet, but he certainly has a place in our offense and on this football team.
Questions? Anything? Both of your tight ends have had a really good camp, Dawson Knox and Octavius Cooley. So they could possibly be on the field at the same time? Yeah,
I mean, we're an 11 personnel based team, but we will play 10s and we will play 12, and just based on what the needs are for that drive or that down, you could see us branch out from 11 and go to 10 or 12. It just depends on what we feel like we need at that time. But we are very pleased with Dawson Knox and Octavius Cooley and also Jason Pellerin at tight end.
Any more questions for Coach Longo?
Coach, how'd you grade Matt Corral during the course of the camp, and do you feel confident that he can help you behind Jordan?
I do. I think anytime you have a young quarterback, I've said this a few times, I mean, this is a young man that was sitting in a high school class taking final exams in December, and in March he's running an SEC offense. So it's a process, just like it was with Jordan Ta'amu, just like it was with Jay Patterson. And so, you know, he kind of got through the growing pains in the spring. I thought he did a great job of studying film and trying to prep himself. He was a lot more prepared coming into summer camp here in August, and he's made some tremendous progress. And I think he's kind of where we would hoped he would be at this time, heading into our opening game on September 1st.